My name is Olga Resiga. I'm a Chief Business Development Officer at Solstice. And today we are going to have fireside chat with Ronnie from KingMakers. Pleasure to meet you. He's the CEO of this wonderful company.
Yeah.
So, Ronnie, I would like to start to talk a bit about your expertise. So, basically, KingMakers being known worldwide and it's a big brand. So, let me ask you about, in general, why have you joined this company?
Yeah. So thanks, Olga. Thanks for having me today. So yeah, I've been in the industry for around 30 years. So too long to say. I know. Background very much originally in the UK and European market. I was at Skybet on the leadership team at Skybet, and then on leadership teams in the UK and Ireland team in Flutter. And when I left Flutter, I was thinking about what I wanted to do next in the industry, and I just thought Africa was a very exciting, dynamic, growing market. And I got to meet some great people at KingMakers, and I thought, actually, this is a really exciting, interesting company, and we can, have some fun and hopefully grow the business. So, for those who don't know, KingMakers, as you said, we're African based. Our original and first brand was Bet King in Nigeria. That's a retail and online business. So sports betting and gaming mainly in Nigeria. And then we launched Super Sport Bet in South Africa at the beginning of 2024. And then we just recently launched in Zambia as well. So certainly ambitions to become Pan-African and grow from our base in Nigeria and South Africa.
So you see the potential in the market, and I would say that the whole industry is telling like there is a great potential in African markets and in South Africa as well. But what I noticed, I don't know if you have the same opinion, but basically is that not lots of operators worldwide, specifically like from European countries, enter that market. Or what do you think is the issue with that?
So I think you're right. I think, some of the more sort of bigger hitting global players are not in the African market. But certainly from my perspective, I think they're starting to pay attention now. You look at the size of the addressable market, also that, some listed companies have published their figures of what they're seeing from the African business. And you can see, it's got a lot of potential, but also you can see the growth that's happening in the market. It is definitely double-digit growth. I think that's driven from, obviously, digital penetration's increasing, smartphone usage is increasing, suddenly mobile data is getting better, and also it's a young growing population, and those sort of two things combined really give the platform for it to be a successful market. So I'd be surprised if some of the bigger sort of US European players don't start to have a look at the market. But to be honest with you, those who are there, I think, are doing very well and growing as a result.
So, and it seems like like customized approach is needed. So maybe African market is a bit complicated in terms of specification of the market, specification of the players. Maybe this is the issue why all still operators are not there. I would find it like very, like prosperous market, but again, it's really complicated. But what will you find if you put a bet on the markets, like in Africa? What will be the most, like it's not like about importance. It's more about what is the easiest entrance if we're talking about the Africa region, which country?
So I think, yeah, to your original point, I think that's exactly right. You've got to think. I mean, ultimately, there's 54 countries, and you've got to think about entering to each of those countries differently. Ultimately, a customer in Nigeria is very different from a customer in Kenya or from a customer in South Africa. So certainly, when you're entering the market, you need to have a good understanding of customers, what the market looks like. And look, every market is definitely different, and you can't just go with a sort of blanket approach across the continent. I think, ultimately, if people are looking to get in the market and they're not there, it's about doing your due diligence and understanding, look, where the regulation is fair and strong from a taxation perspective. If it's you know uh, a good mechanics from a taxation perspective. And then ultimately, I think from a customer perspective, whether it's gaming or sports betting, there is a real sort of certainly, the customers like the entertainment. That's certainly what we've seen, whether that's been in the different countries. It's about, I think, when you go into the markets, understanding that market and making sure that you're going with the product that's going to suit and fit the customers.
Yeah, true. And saying about the gamification and everything inside the brand. So basically, you can have lots of players in Africa, like tons of them, but it still comes to the retention of these players because again, the average deposit, average revenue per user is completely different from what people used to, let's say, in Europe
Yeah.
or European region. So, what do you think will be a good tool or way to retain players to entertain them?
Yeah.
Is there any specific stuff in Africa?
So I think the point that you make, Olga, about the fact that it is a different market in terms of what you tend to find is you have a lot of low stakes players, and it's more at times a volume play. So certainly, what you need to make sure is that retention is critical and getting that right. And then from a you've got to have very strong. Certainly, we feel that we have it at Kingmakers, strong marketing teams, good bonus engines, good CRM tools, all the sort of the tools for doing a really good job from a marketing perspective. I think is important.
True.
Yeah.
And then if we see like this complete and you was, like highlighting that there is a big difference between the markets there. So if you compare, for example, Nigeria and South Africa as the markets, what is like the main difference between these two?
So I think South Africa is a bit more like a European market in that the sports betting there. I mean, football is obviously strong, but you go sports like cricket, rugby union are also big. But actually, South Africa is mainly a casino and actually a slots market. And certainly that if you look at Nigeria, that's very different. Nigeria is more sports heavy, but from a casino and gaming perspective, what you see is crash games are much bigger than slots. You see a growth in slots going on, and certainly that has been one of the stories about the African market is a success of crash games. Certainly they've been very dominant in a number of markets. Certainly the market that we've just gone in Zambia, crash games are very big. And so it's about understanding, look, if you go into South Africa with a crash games heavy approach, it's not going to work because they're mainly slots players there. Whereas if you go to Nigeria and crash games are on one of the big the biggest things from a gaming perspective. So you need to understand definitely the market, but there are big differences we certainly see between Nigeria and South Africa now when we're going into Zambia.
And regulatory wise, which will be the most complicated?
So I think what I don't I actually don't think it matters from an African perspective here. I think just us as gaming industry executives, you find that the regulatory landscape changes a lot, and you've got to be, I suppose, build a business that is scalable and able to deal with regulatory shifts and changes. They do happen. I think it's very important for us. We like to work closely with the regulators. We certainly see that, with the in Nigeria, similarly in South Africa. And I suppose all we want as the industry is that the regulators understand that there's a win-win to be found in terms of working closely together, making sure we have the player protections in place, but also allowing for growth for ultimately a lot of customers love and are excited by our products.
True. So, and there are also lots of expenses that definitely are there. Yeah, like for example, taxes for sure, other than fees. So I'm very interested, and I think the audience as well, in the initiative of stablecoin that you have at the Betway. What do you think about it?
So yeah, certainly Betway have introduced a stable coin, and you've seen that there are a number of different operators starting to use crypto. Certainly that's something that we're looking at. I think it needs to be done in the right way. Certainly, I think there are some, to be frank, there's some players in the black market who are essentially, from a crypto perspective, making it more difficult for the ones who like ourselves, the Kingmakers, who work with a legalized, regulated market. But certainly for me, crypto is interesting. It's something that we're looking at. We're not offering at the moment, but I'm expecting hopefully we will do in the future.
So basically, as an A/B testing for you, is it like something that you will do in the future? Yes, with a
Yes.
stablecoin.
Yeah.
So it works.
Well, we will see. Time will tell.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting, and with the stablecoin especially, and with crypto, because I've also heard a lot about the like let's say, those dinosaurs in African markets who are now thinking of having like crypto brands in parallel or adding crypto to the existing one, especially in Nigeria, to change a bit the approach to gain new audience and specifically, exceed some high expenses that they already have with their operations.
I mean, I think the thing that's really important to us is certainly, from our perspective, that we work closely with government, closely with regulators, and that, ultimately that we've got a strong environment to have a successful gaming business. That there are unfortunately operators who are, you know, operating in markets, not paying local taxes, not following the regulations, and then that just makes it more difficult for the market to grow and
Yeah,
succeed.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So in general, that's very interesting about Kingmakers. What I guess your strategy in Africa in general? Are you going? I mean, you already told that there is a new market for you guys, and I'm sure you have more in mind. So what's the strategy for Kingmakers in Africa right now?
Yeah. So, yeah, great question, Olga. So, very much from our perspective, we're on a podium position in Nigeria. We think we've come into the top 10 in South Africa. We've just launched in Zambia. We very much have ambitions to be a top 5 operator in Africa by 2028. That's where we're heading. And we, as a company, we're actually backed by MultiChoice, who've recently been taken over by Canal Plus. So, big pay TV operator. So, I've certainly got a background in Skybet in the UK. I've seen the success that can be brought by having a big pay TV operator with a betting and gaming business. And we certainly think that having the strength of Canal Plus and MultiChoice behind us, that gives us an edge and a USP in markets that we go into. So certainly we're focusing on markets that are where MultiChoice is strong, where the SuperSport brand is strong, and that ultimately we'll expand Pan-Africa using that strength.
Yeah, that's true. There are also some small markets which have a great potential in Africa as well.
Yes, there are.
So no, not only these huge ones, by the way. So let's put a top priority for the markets in Africa as for you. Maybe you're not moving in this direction right now,
Yeah.
but if you will recommend to the audience to enter new territories,
Yeah.
for sure, they might be your competitors in future, but it strengthens your brand as well. So basically, what will be the top priority of a market?
So I think, look, if you look at the overall TAM of Africa, by far the biggest market is South Africa. The second biggest market is Nigeria. The issue with those markets is obviously because of their size, they're very competitive. And certainly, then when we started to look at somewhere like Zambia, which is a competitive market, but actually we're thinking as an entry one for us next, it actually, ticks a lot of boxes. So I think operators very much need to look at, right, okay, look, where they think suits their tech platform, suits their products, and that they can potentially find an angle or an edge, or they've got a USP going into our market. What I would guard against, and we've seen it certainly in Nigeria, is that some operators just come in and say, oh, we're this really successful brand here. We'll just come and do the same in Nigeria without understanding the market and the customer and the products that are needed. And suddenly they burn a load of marketing dollars and actually exit the market. I think you've got to go in. Certainly, I'd advise going into markets. You probably focus on a smaller number of markets, be very clear on your plans, and execute well. And that's what certainly that's our philosophy of when we're going into markets. We're not suddenly going to go into 20 new markets tomorrow. It's very much about targeting and executing.
That's true. So me personally, really impressed what you guys did all over the world, but basically in South Africa and in Nigeria and in Africa in general. So I wish you a great success there, definitely. And what we got from this conversation is that there should be a customized approach to each market, thoughtful entering any markets that you have in Africa. And basically, there are some hints which are going this with the same pace with the world, like stable coins and crypto and everything. So thank you for this conversation.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that these plans that you were mentioning about 2028, they will definitely come true for Kingmakers, especially with your help. So thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Olga. Appreciate you hosting.
Thank you guys for your attention and listening.